Hello, accounting students. Welcome back. This is our work in Chapter 4. And remember, Chapter 4 is all about posting to a general ledger. We are all the way up to Lesson 3 in Chapter 4, journalizing, correcting entries, and correcting posting errors. So up until now, everything that we have done in terms of taking information from our general journal and putting it in our general ledger accounts, we've done correctly, which is great. But the reality is occasionally we do make mistakes, and so we do need to understand how to do correcting entries whenever we make mistakes. So we're going to do two things here in this particular lesson. We're going to analyze incorrect journal entries and prepare the correcting entries, and then we're going to demonstrate how to correct errors that were made during the posting process. So first step, an incorrect journal entry should be corrected with an additional journal entry called a correcting entry. Now, one of the things we have to remember is that if we made a mistake in our journal, so we were writing an entry, a transaction in our general journal, and we caught the mistake before anything else happened, we line through and then we write the correct entry on the next line. More than likely, we haven't gotten around to actually posting it. So what we would do then is create a memo as our source document describing whatever it is that the correction should be. So we can see this one, a payment of $120 for advertising was debited in error to a miscellaneous expense. So we made an error. We can see that we had a payment for advertising and incorrectly we put it under miscellaneous. So we discovered a payment of cash for advertising in March was journalized and posted in error as a debit to miscellaneous expense instead of advertising. So what we can see is that advertising expense is going to be a debit and the miscellaneous expense is going to be a credit. So within our general journal on April 17th, so that's the day that we found the error and we're making the correction, we're going to debit advertising expense, we're going to credit miscellaneous expense, and then we're going to source that this was memo number 15 so that we can find this information going forward. Then we want to be thinking about what happens if we need to correct an error in posting to the wrong account. So this previous one, this was correcting in our general journal. This next one we're looking at, there's some posting going on. So we draw a line through the entire incorrect entry, and in this example we can see that we put a debit on prepaid insurance, which means our prepaid insurance was going up. We just draw a line through that incorrect entry. Then we're going to record the posting in the correct account and recalculate the account balance. So instead of going into prepaid insurance, this was supposed to go into supplies. So on the 12th, you can see we have our supplies, and we just go ahead and here's the $100 debit that was in error, and here is the $100 debit now that is the correction in our correct account. We can see what happens if we do an incorrect amount. So we posted $450 as a debit on May 6th, but the correct amount was actually $45. So we put the correction right above the little debit here, and then we carry that balance over. Then we also need to recalculate the corrected balance, which you can see right here. The new balance would be $75 instead of $420. If we post the amount in the wrong column, we line through the incorrect item and then put the correction in the right spot and then recalculate that account balance. So now you can see that that balance is $75 as a debit, as opposed to if we had $45 in a debit and then $30 in a credit, we would have had a different balance on our debit side here. So what is a correcting entry? Any journal entry that's made to correct an error in a ledger. And when do we need to make these correcting entries? whenever a transaction is improperly journalized and posted to the ledger. And you want to be careful. Don't delete your mistakes. Anytime you make an error, you want the correction to be clearly visible. Whenever forensic accountants examine accounting records, if they see that entries have been deleted, that's a big red flag. So anytime you make changes, you want to make sure those corrections are easily visible, and that's pretty important. So from here, what are the 3 steps for correcting an incorrect amount? We just draw a line through the incorrect amount, put the right amount in the right space, and then we go ahead and recalculate the account balance. Be sure to be thinking about what kinds of organizational records have been presented so far in accounting, and let's try to start making some connections between the kinds of records an individual might keep, so personal records, and the equivalent in our record keeping for a business. So if we have a chart of accounts in our business, what might that equate to within our personal record keeping system? So from there, you can go ahead now and hit the form with your answers and the work together and on your own. And after you finish those, you can go ahead to the application problems for Chapter 4. Good luck!